Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a nice painting. Mirrors and places to sit down. I'm sure that's in. Whoa, more mirrors? And even more mirrors? Now, we better turn to the Bible to figure out what's up. Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 through 17. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other, just as the Lord has forgiven you. So you must also forgive. And above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in with the one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. Teach and admonish one another in all wisdom, and with gratitude in your hearts sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs to God. And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Well, if you guessed that I was here in the bride's room in our church, well then, I'm proud of you, because I'm guessing you've never been in this room either. This is one of those little spaces that's kind of a secret in our church. Usually the door to come in is locked. It's right beside the choir room and right beside the fellowship hall and right underneath the sanctuary, which is why it is located right here. This is a space where people, when they're getting ready to be married, come and get dressed for their wedding. Now, if you have ever been to a wedding or been a part of a wedding, you know there is lots of planning that happens to get ready for a wedding, right? People pick a date and they send out all these fancy cards that say, this is when our celebration is going to be, and put it on your calendar. And people order lots of food because people love to celebrate over meals. And people order flowers because they want it to be beautiful. And then they spend a lot of time looking for the perfect dress or the perfect suit to wear at their celebration. And a lot of time really put into that, and a lot of money put into that, right? So this is a piece of getting ready for a wedding that a lot of people focus on as they're getting ready. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be, to look your best on a really important day in your life. But I wonder if that is the most important thing to be thinking about putting on the day of your wedding. And so our Bible passage today, I hope, gave you a hint about what we're going to be talking about today. In this letter to the Colossians, we are learning that Paul is using a metaphor, and a metaphor is comparing two unlike things. A metaphor you might have heard before would be something like talking about how Santa's belly jiggles like a bowl full of jelly. That word "like" in there kind of compares the two. So metaphors are nice because sometimes our words can't explain exactly what we mean, right? They're just not big enough to capture the idea that we have in our head. And so sometimes comparing two things helps us understand both things a little bit better, a little bit differently. So in this case, in the letter to the Colossians are being challenged to think about, what are they putting on their bodies? How do they get ready every day? And what do they put on their bodies? What are the clothes that they put on their bodies every day? And how might that thinking about what they're putting on each day change if they compared those things, or if they thought about those things like the characteristics of Jesus? So if you think about what was Jesus like? You probably don't think, well, he probably wore a brown robe and he was probably about, I don't know, 5.5 feet tall or whatever. You're not thinking about what Jesus was like physically because we don't really know, do we? We don't have any pictures of what Jesus looked like. Instead, you're probably thinking about what was his heart like. He was merciful. When he saw somebody in trouble, he would extend mercy or compassion first instead of judgment. Jesus wanted to grow his circle, right? He looked to add people to his following and to God's kingdom. And so he kept opening the door wider and wider and wider to invite people inside. Jesus also was, he was really smart, I think. Like, he would take these Bible learnings that people had for so many years, hundreds of years, and passed on through the centuries, and he would take those Old Testament readings and help interpret them a new way, in a way that was kind of revolutionary, in a way that said, hey, this is a new way to think about these passages. And that takes some smarts, right? So we think about those kinds of things when we think about what was Jesus like. And so in this letter to the Colossians, some of those attributes of Jesus, some of those characteristics of Jesus, some of those things that would be the way we would describe Jesus are the words that get used to compare to clothes, right? So let me read some of these again. Clothe yourself with compassion, and compassion means feeling for other people, right? And kindness, you know exactly what that is because I've seen you do those things. And humility, that means putting other people before you, not thinking you're so much more important than your neighbor, right? Other things that were written to the Colossians to put on each day. Patience. That's a hard one for me. How about you? Being patient with somebody else means sometimes that I have to hold my tongue and not say what I'm thinking. That is not always the easiest thing for me. Or if I'm waiting on somebody and I'm having to extend patience to them, that is another way you might extend patience. Forgive each other. That was one of the big pieces. Be a person that puts on forgiveness. In other words, don't be a person that holds a grudge. Don't be a person that puts on the heaviest boots that a grudge might feel like on your feet, and instead think about how you might instead extend forgiveness. So all of those traits that we find here in the book of Colossians, I think can be really helpful for us. If instead of worrying about, does this match today? Do my shoes match my necklace or my earrings or or does my shirt match my pants? Which, are not bad things. But if instead of worrying about that, if instead of being intentional about those things, what if we also showed the same amount of intentionality, of purposefulness about what characteristics of Jesus we were going to put on that day? What would happen if I looked in one of these bazillions of mirrors here in the bride's room and I said, Eleanor, your challenge today is to be patient first. So when you feel yourself growing impatient, say a breath prayer to say, remind me, God, how to show patience, and do it, right? What would happen to my day if I did that every day? What would happen if every time I looked in the mirror, I said, Eleanor, have you been a person that shows compassion? Can people see compassion on your face when they look into your eyes? Can they see that you care about them and care about their feelings? What would happen if I cared less about how my hair looked and more about, have I shown kindness today? And have people seen kindness in my heart today? And was it reflected in their lives? So that is your challenge. And maybe it would be fun for you to draw some of the clothes that you usually put on. What kind of clothes do you usually put on your body? And this time of year, we have some extra choices too, right? You might put on a coat, or this weekend, you might even put on a scarf because it's going to be chilly, or a hat. Like, what are some of the things that you put on your body, and maybe you could draw a picture of it. And then imagine, how is that like some of these traits that we were reading about in Colossians? And how are they alike? And so maybe that might give you a little something to think on each day. When you put on your shirt, maybe that becomes a reminder of kindness for you every single day. And that can be part of how you are intentional about getting ready for each new day. So we don't need a special occasion like a wedding to remind us that some things it's worth getting ready for, and it's worth putting on the right things for. And so I hope this week you get to challenge yourself thinking about how to put on these traits of Jesus, and so that the world can be changed through your love. All right, friends, we'll see where I pop up next week. Probably won't be something associated with love, since Valentine's Day will be over, but it will be somewhere great. I can't wait to see you soon. Bye.